Adriatus, Armchair General, and today we're going to be diving into history and replaying some great battles from times gone past. No, this isn't a World War II game. This is Black Powder, the game of miniature battles in the age of the musket.
The game encompasses warfare from the 18th to the 19th centuries, a period of history which is not as commonly used as a setting for a war game as World War II. However, there are several companies which produce very good miniatures for this time period, and Black Powder provides rules which result in quick and fun games.
Well, let's have a look at this game of colourful soldiers in greater detail. One of the things you'll notice immediately about Black Powder is that it plays very similarly to Warlord Games' previous game, Pike and Shot, which means that the battles revolve mainly around units and not individual soldiers. So in Warhammer, you have stat lines for each individual model, whereas in Black Powder, the entire unit has a single stat line. What does this mean in practice?
Well, for one, less fiddling with models. Wounded units have small counters placed next to them, rather than having soldiers removed. Also, you never have to calculate how many attacks a unit has, since its statistics never change. This helps to speed the game up immensely. In fact, the best way to describe the way this game plays is by calling it a scaled-up version of War Master.
Now, your army has a general who commands the units by having them organized into brigades. So you give an order to a brigade and every unit in that brigade will carry it out, such as advancing. Now, each brigade does have its own commander as well, but they have much lower staff ratings, command values basically, so they're less reliable at making sure orders get through. What this does is it makes you prioritize your orders to make sure that the most crucial ones are given by your general.
Each brigade can be given orders as a single entity if the units in the brigade remain within 6 inches of each other. Units within 6 inches of each other can also support themselves in melee combat, leading to players keeping them close to one another.
All this makes the armies feel like 19th century military forces, so, you know, you'll have stuff like scouts, dragoons, square formation, early rockets, heavy artillery, gentle... leads to you having cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria! What was I on about again?
Now, during the game, each player takes turns giving their brigades orders, then shooting, and then resolving hand-to-hand combats. After this, the turn passes to the other player. This continues until victory is achieved.
Now, in the command phase, your generals and commanders have a chance to issue orders to brigades and units. These are always move orders, as shooting and combat is assumed to be done under the soldier's own initiative. Your orders have to be highly specific, detailing exactly how far you want the unit to move, before you roll 2d6 and compare them to the commander issuing the orders' staff rating, their command value.
If the score is over the commander's staff rating, then the test is failed and no order issued. If the result is equal or 1 less, then the order is passed and the unit may make 1 move. If the result is 2 less, 2 moves can be made. 3 less and lower entitle the unit to 3 moves, which is the maximum possible. So this means that your cavalry can end up going off the opposite board edge if you are specific with your orders, like advance to that hedge, as opposed to advance. If you ever roll a double 6 in a command check, someone has blundered. This leads to a random order being issued to the unit, leading to your very own charge of the light brigade.
Which reminds me, if a unit's movement will bring it into contact with an enemy unit, then it counts as having committed a charge. Now, this can be a bad thing, as it might lead to your unit being far ahead of your main advance, being isolated and then shortly destroyed.
Morale is more like a save than leadership, since this game uses morale to track how close a unit is to fleeing from the battlefield. So when combat or shooting hits, you roll a dice for each hit, and have to score equal to or over the morale stat to ignore the hit. If you fail, the unit gains a wound counter. Once the number of wound counters is as much as the stamina stat, the unit is considered shaken.
Unit special rules are listed under Special. Duh. Each special rule is clearly and concisely explained under the special rules section of the rules, making it easy to remember what each one does.
That's about it. Now, during the turn you have a shooting phase followed by a combat phase. Shooting is dead simple. Check the type of weapon the unit has, which gives you the maximum range, and as long as a single model and an enemy unit is in that range, that unit is a valid target. However, your soldiers must shoot the closest unit unless it is concealed, which means that over half the target unit is not visible to the shooting unit. Artillery are the only things capable of shooting over friendly units if positioned on a hill. Riflemen can't do this. Why? Hell, I don't know. Different types of artillery have different ranges, just like guns. As for the amount of dice they roll for a shooting attack, well, that varies in distance. If the target is within 6 inches, you get 3 dice. Half range away, it's 2, and over half range, you only get 1 dice.
There are modifiers to shooting, of course, involving things such as the size of the unit firing, the target unit being shot at, skirmishers, sharpshooters, and so on. But let's not dwell on that. Let's move on to hand-to-hand combat.
Which is exactly the same as shooting, only units have to be base to base following a charge. That's the only real difference. You look up the melee stat and roll that many dice, 4 or more is a success, then your opponent makes morale saves. Both sides get to fight, of course, and the loser needs to take a break test, which is pretty similar to all other wargames out there revolving around ranked units. You roll 2 dice, add modifiers, and check a table provided in the book to see what happens. I'm looking at you, Warhammer Fantasy!
Well, at least it makes this game not only quick, but easy to learn as well.
Earlier, I mentioned units being shaken once their wounds equal their stamina. Shaken units suffer heavy penalties to their break tests, making them more likely to flee the field and count as destroyed. Most of the time, your unit will stand its ground or fall back. Or your officers can give a rally order, which removes casualty markers as they motivate their soldiers to continue fighting.
Now, there is a section of the rules dedicated to advanced rules, so stuff like mixed formations, brigade squares, rockets, specialist artillery, fighting in buildings, so on and so forth. Basically, it's not really necessary for this review. Although there is a section which is sort of... The section is basically how to figure out the cost in points of each unit, because none of the units in the game are given any points values. Why? Okay, so I understand the fact that this game is primarily intended for much more mature gamers who are part of a gaming group, figure out any sort of difficulties by just having a nice chat and having a games master on hand to adjudicate. Okay, so this game is not intended for tournament play, but at the same time, they're just cutting off a potential market of younger gamers who, let's face it, a bit lazy bastards. We're not going to sit there and do lengthy mathematical calculations to figure out the right points cost in order to make a balanced army. You can do it, there are rules for it, but why couldn't Warlord games just include points cost with unit profiles? Why? Why?
Throughout the entire book, there are sidebars filled with little tidbits of history, things like uniforms, weapons, as well as famous incidents. It's a bit like a history textbook for secondary school, really. All of these are quite interesting and don't detract from the main text itself. There is also a full history section detailing the various wars which the rule set can be used to recreate. The American Revolutionary War and the Napoleonic Wars, for example. This is all well and good, though, again, not much about running your own battles. Interestingly, Warlord Games only provides the Prussian Landwehr models. Their own side provides British and French Victrix models. That being said, those models, which are 28mm in scale, are beautiful, highly detailed, plastic, and come in a variety of parts for you to mix and match. You also tend to get around 50 models per box, which for £20 is a lot better than GW.
Seriously, you'll have a fancy army of Napoleonic troops far faster than, say, an army of guardsmen. especially if you're doing an infantry company or an armored company. So, to sum up, quick and simple rules, really beautiful miniatures, aimed at slightly mature gaming groups which don't have rules lawyers. Yeah, good luck!
Here's 40 shillings on the drum to those who volunteer to come to list and fight the foe today, over the hills and far away, o'er the hills.